The ancient dragon fell beneath the might of humanity's small hands, yet 1,000 questions swirled in its mind. For as long as it could remember, its meals had never been humans or their livestock. In fact, it had tried many times to aid humanity, so, at the very least, it wanted to know why these very humans sought its demise. But the humans shrugged, saying they simply felt like it. The dragon believed its slaughter was merely due to human selfishness, but truthfully, having lived long enough, it had lost the will to fight back. As the dragon disintegrated into dust, it requested the god of death to cast its soul into hell, so it could finally find peace. However, the god of death said no, and allowed its soul to enter the body of a newborn. The dragon opened its eyes and saw its new family looking down at it. From what it could gather, they had decided to name it Dolan. Years passed, and, despite having been wronged by humans, Dolan grew into a kind-hearted young man, dedicated to the village where he had been raised. In this world, agriculture was nearly the only lifeline, so each morning, Dolan woke up early to toil in the fields to provide for himself. In this village, he was considered an adult at the age of 15. When Dolan turned 16, he moved out to be self-sufficient. One day, while fishing with his brother reminded him that he needed to head to the swamp tomorrow to investigate recent events. Dolan replied that he remembered, as all the lizards in the swamp had vanished a month ago, and someone needed to uncover the truth behind this series of suspicious disappearances. However, Dolan's younger brother felt it was pointless, as this was usually the soldier's job, but Dolan didn't want to bother them, considering how busy they already were in the village. His brother Marco offered to tag along to ensure his safety, but Dolan insisted that his brother stay home, as that was helpful enough. Afterward, Dolan caught his first fish of the day, and the two brothers wrapped up their fishing trip with a bountiful catch. Dolan brought the fish back to the village to show Melida and Am, who were impressed by the large bucket of fish. However, they expressed concern that Dolan was still fishing instead of preparing for his mission. Dolan reassured them that he had been gradually preparing over the past few days. He thanked Melida for her assistance in persuading the village chief to allow him to go. Melida said she was happy to help and trusted Dolan, as he was the one who had trained her. She felt confident that he would return safely. Dolan then asked if Melida and Am had any plans, to which Melida replied that she intended to take the children for a small training session later. However, she added that Dolan didn't need to worry since there was already plenty to do at home. Dolan felt reassured as he brought home the spoils of his fishing trip. While preparing to clean the fish, Dolan pondered how the village couldn't afford enough guards to ensure safety, so all the villagers had to contribute to the protective effort. Just then, IR arrived to remind Dolan about the magic training session. Dolan had completely forgotten, so he thanked IR, and they headed to the magic teacher's house together. After chanting a spell, Dolan unleashed a powerful energy that obliterated all targets before him. The teacher praised Dolan's destructive power, but tempered the compliment with criticism, saying he still had much to learn about control. That evening, as Dolan arrived at the square, he encountered a girl with white hair. The village chief announced that she would be moving into the village soon. He didn't forget to warn Dolan to behave around her, as she was a noblewoman. She introduced herself as Christina and extended her hand toward Dolan. And as they shook hands, Dolan instantly recognized that she was a formidable warrior, a seasoned fighter. After his encounter with Christina, Dolan wandered in a daze, reflecting on everything he had learned since becoming human. In his dragon form, he never had to worry about the icy grip of winter or the sweltering heat of summer. But now, in this fragile human body, those worries had turned into a heavy burden, so he had to tread carefully in his surroundings. Dolan quickly returned home, where his parents welcomed him with open arms, along with his younger brother Morel. Dolan had brought back a bounty of ingredients, and his mother eagerly set to work, preparing a delicious feast for the family. Dolan felt a rush of nostalgia as he savoured his mother's cooking, which he had missed dearly. His father suggested that Dolan should find a wife who could cook, to enjoy such meals more often. This wasn't the first time Dolan had heard this, and while he didn't completely oppose the idea of marriage, he still wanted to relish his bachelorhood for a while longer. Morel asked Dolan if he would still be heading to the swamp to investigate the next day. Dolan brushed it off, but his mother was quite worried because the swamp was not only far, but the path to it was notorious for its dangers. Dolan reassured her, insisting that he wouldn't take unnecessary risks. The swamp wasn't just far away, it was infamous for its treacherous path. Yet, Dolan's mother, Anne, wasn't worried. She trusted her son's bravery and didn't want to hold him back. Dolan's father told him, "You're a grown man now. You can make your own choices. Just promise you'll come back safe." The next morning, as Dolan prepared to leave, the whole village gathered to send him off. He felt a little embarrassed by all the fuss, but the captain insisted this was the least he could do since Dolan was taking over his duties. Honestly, the captain still felt like he was the one leaving, not Dolan. But Melida reminded him, if he left and monsters attacked the village, no one would be there to protect them. Every villager wanted to support Dolan in some way. Then, Sister Latia arrived to bless him, wishing for a safe journey ahead. IR handed Dolan a bento box, ensuring he wouldn't starve out there. With their well wishes echoing in his ears, Dolan began his quest to investigate the swamp. The lizard spirits who once lived there often visited the village, but one day, they vanished without a trace. Dolan couldn't ignore this mystery. He volunteered to find out what had happened, though a flicker of worry stirred inside him about what he might uncover. When Dolan arrived at the swamp, he reached out to feel the area with his hands and immediately understood why the lizards fled. The earth's power was growing stronger, while the water's force was weakening. Suddenly, rustling in the bushes snapped him to attention. Given the swamp's state, only terrifying monsters could survive here now. Just as he readied his sword, Dolan was stunned to see a lamia quietly retreating behind him. Lamias rarely appeared here, but no matter how strange, this one was definitely no pushover. The lamia asked Dolan if he was alone, and he confirmed he was. This calmed her down. What she was about to do would be dangerous. She recalled her mother's teachings, a seductive spell paired with a series of moves, but she stumbled awkwardly, like a student fumbling through a recitation. Dolan felt more confused than bewitched, but Lamia pressed on, explaining she hadn't come to fight. Suddenly, a giant mud monster appeared above her, looking far from interested in sitting down for a peaceful tea chat. The beast attacked Lamia, but Dolan leapt forward, slicing off its arm and pulling her to safety. They had to stay silent and hide until the creature gave up the search. Once the monster left, Lamia asked Dolan, "What was that terrifying thing?" Dolan explained it was an enraged earth spirit, likely the reason why the lizard spirits who once called this place home had fled long ago. A recent earthquake might have triggered this upheaval. Sadly, Dolan guessed things wouldn't return to normal overnight. Lamia introduced herself as Selena. Dolan heard all Lamias could wield magic, so he asked if she could help. Selena confirmed her magical abilities, and Dolan proposed teaming up to defeat the monsters. Selena hesitated, being an earth-aligned beast. Most of her spells were attuned to the earth spirit. Still, she was willing to try. Though Selena's magic might clash with the earth spirit's fury, their alliance sparked a glimmer of hope. Together, they would confront the darkness swallowing the swamp. In that moment, Dolan realized that sometimes, strength lies not in going it alone, but in the bonds we forge even amid chaos. There was a move that could seriously harm it, so Dolan quickly crafted a plan. He decided to attack the monster head-on, while Selena would ambush it from behind. At his signal, both charged simultaneously. While Dolan held the beast in place, Selena cast a spell and summoned a colossal serpent that coiled tightly around the earth spirit. Distracted, the creature was vulnerable. Dolan rushed in and channeled his energy into his sword. With a fierce slash, he cleaved the monster in two, the scorch marks smoking fiercely. But then, the earth spirit's mud turned into a sticky sludge, splattering Selena from head to toe. Dolan hurried over to check if Selena was okay. She wasn't hurt, just in desperate need of a laundry day and a good wash. That night, Dolan cooked dinner for both of them. Selena was surprised that Dolan showed no fear toward her, even though she was a Lamia. Dolan explained he had met Lamias before, but Selena was strikingly different from any he had known. Most Lamias were wary of humans and far more aggressive. Now, he wondered why there were no Lamia villages nearby, and asked Selena why she was here. Selena explained that in her family's tradition, when a Lamia turns 17, they must leave home to find a partner. That was why she was on this journey. The Lamia clan was cursed to bear only daughters. A male offspring were rare, and if born, they took after their father's serpent traits. Their bodies contained deadly toxins, making finding a mate a perilous challenge, with fatal risks just from skin contact. Selena needed to ensure her husband's body was strong enough to resist her poison, but such men were scarce. Fortunately, Selena's mother had found the perfect partner during her own journey, and her parents shared a harmonious bond. Dolan smiled, happy to see Selena so joyful, but this made Selena suspect he was treating her like a mere curiosity. Dolan reassured her that he simply found her utterly charming when they talked, which made Selena blush in embarrassment. Then he handed her a bowl of soup. Though it couldn't compete with his mother's cooking, Dolan was confident Selena would like it. She tasted it and loved it so much she started babbling nonsense, as if tasting the finest delicacy on earth. Realizing she'd gone a bit overboard, Selena apologized for being so hyper. Dolan chuckled, glad she enjoyed it, reminiscing about how his family would gather around the fire on cold winter nights, savoring this very soup. Selena could feel how much Dolan treasured family above all else. Dolan himself was amazed at the long, lonely life he'd once lived as a dragon isolated in a cavern. The next morning, their time together drew to a close. Dolan bid Selena farewell, wishing her luck in finding the right life partner, but before leaving, he wanted to give her a gift. Knowing Lamias craved human vitality, Dolan transferred some of his own life energy to Selena. The effect was immediate. She collapsed, fainting on the spot. Dolan apologized for moving too fast, clearly caught off guard by the reaction. The morning after, their shared moments had ended. Dolan said goodbye to Selena, and wished her well on her quest for a soulmate. But before leaving, he wanted to give Selena a gift. Since Lamias thrive on human vitality, Dolan shared a bit of his own life force with her. This overwhelmed Selena, causing her to faint instantly. Dolan apologized for acting prematurely. As Selena regained consciousness, Dolan mentioned he would soon return to the village and invited her to visit him sometime. Just before he set off, Selena unexpectedly encountered two male travelers, a delightful surprise since she was searching for a husband. However, before she could introduce herself, they caught sight of her lower half and panicked, leaving her bewildered. Meanwhile, back in Dolan's village, Lai was learning the art of potion making with Dolan, while Maguru cautioned them that miscalculations could be life-threatening. They had to be incredibly careful. Unfortunately, Dolan struggled with this, as his herbs transformed into clouds of smoke. The intricate processes were beyond his grasp. But Lai encouraged him not to lose hope, reminding him of his many other talents, and, of course, his handsome looks. Dolan thanked her for the compliment, but admitted his lack of finesse in following complex instructions. Maguru informed them that Lee's potion had succeeded, granting her a break, and she could step outside if she desired. Although Lai wanted to stay with Dolan, she decided to help her mother since she had some spare time. Dolan felt at a loss with his clumsiness, as he had never needed to learn potion making during his time as a dragon. Maguru, unaware of his past, believed that even if he wasn't skilled in potion making yet, he would gradually improve. For now, she taught him how to transform his failed herbs into an antidote. A little later, Dolan was invited to dine with Lai's family. Despite his hesitation to intrude, they insisted he join them. They began the meal by praying to the nature goddess, Mile, and it turned out that Dolan had been friends with Mile in his previous life, even after such a long time apart. After lunch, Dolan hurriedly left, realizing he was late for his next training session. On his way, he encountered Miu, who remarked that he seemed rushed. Dolan explained he was late for practice, and Miu felt disappointed because she wanted to give him some fresh milk. However, she quickly poured him a glass of the newly squeezed milk that he couldn't resist, thanking her before rushing off to training. Soon after, Dolan arrived at the hill, where Anne was teaching the children how to wield spears. He apologized for being late, but Anne assured him it was all right, knowing Dolan had a magic lesson with Maguru. The children excitedly showcased their new skills, but Dolan urged them to wait until after a break since they had been practicing for a long time. Just then, Dolan sensed the presence of a monster lurking in the nearby woods. Not wanting to frighten the children, he decided to ignore it. That night, Dolan ventured into the forest to investigate the monster he had sensed earlier. Strangely, he felt a sense of familiarity with it, and the only one he could think of who might fit the description was Selena, but he couldn't believe she would be here. As he delved deeper into the woods, he was shocked to find Selena camping there. She was equally surprised to see him, but in her surprise, she accidentally stepped back and knocked over. Dolan swiftly plunged into the scalding waters to rescue Selena from the brink of burning. "Thank you for saving me," she stammered, her cheeks aflame as she realized her state of undress, urging him not to look. Yet Dolan's eyes widened as he began to appraise every detail of Selena's form, concluding she was a potential wife, scoring a solid 9 out of 10. "Please don't stare," Selena implored again, incredulous that he seemed utterly unfazed. Embarrassed, Dolan received a sharp slap to the face from Selena. He apologized for disregarding her feelings, but she only wished to forget the incident. Dolan then inquired about her presence here, recalling she had mentioned heading south to find a husband. Although that was her original plan, every man she encountered fled in fear, leading her to seek him out, the only one unafraid of her. Dolan genuinely hoped to see Selena again. He declared he was ready to help her find a husband, then hesitated, and asked if she would be willing to stay with him for a while. Selena was taken aback, insisting she couldn't do that, fearing she might frighten the villagers. However, Dolan reassured her that it wouldn't be an issue, as the village already had many half-demons like Mia who were well loved. The villagers might be cautious at first, but he was confident they would come to appreciate Selena's gentle, endearing nature. Dolan's words made Selena feel as though he was flirting with her. She liked the idea of living with Dolan in the human village, but she had another reason for seeking him out. She hoped he would share more of that delightful life energy with her once again, for it was the sweetest energy she had ever received. Dolan was more than happy to share whenever she wanted. He extended his hand, offering her his energy, which she relished. He mentioned she could receive even more once they started living together, but now he had plans to introduce her to the villagers. Days later, the village guards were investigating strange occurrences. As for 3 consecutive days, someone had left a pile of hunting food for them. The traces on the ground led them to conclude it must be some sort of serpent monster, and the only one fitting that description was Mia. A meeting was convened to discuss a course of action, as they were uncertain whether this creature posed a threat. After all, it had left food without causing any harm, so there was no reason for hostility. Nevertheless, Bon insisted they should venture into the forest to eliminate it. Other villagers urged him to calm down, stating that even if they agreed to eradicate it, Mia was quite strong and they would need to call for reinforcements from the capital. Dolan overheard this discussion while working in the fields and realized just how fearful everyone was of Mia, but he was confident their opinions would change once they truly understood Selena. At that moment, Maguru spoke up, reprimanding Bon for being overly dramatic, as she didn't believe the monster would harm them. Then she asked Iri to bring her divination basket to confirm her conclusions. After examining the results, she declared that Mia was a blessing for the village. Dolan was thrilled to hear this, and that afternoon, he ventured into the forest to inform Selena that they could proceed to the next step of their plan. No one in the village wanted to kill her anymore, and their attitudes had shifted after being gifted hunting supplies. Now, only one final step remained in the process of making everyone accept her. The next day, Bon organized a meeting with the soldiers in the village and urged everyone to stay vigilant, as they were the village's only defense against danger. He wanted to conduct an emergency training session to ensure everyone was prepared. During the meeting, Dolan and the strongest soldiers of the force were summoned, exactly what Dolan had hoped for to complete the plan. Bon and Melida, along with the priestess Letitia, were also present. Letitia held an important role in the village, possessing the ability to perform miraculous healing spells, and was regarded as the messenger of the goddess Mile. If she declared Selena to be a demon, there would be no way for her to be accepted into the village. Everything hinged on Selena's acting skills, as she needed to pretend to save Dolan from danger to win everyone over. Dolan planned to intentionally confront some monsters to create an opportunity for her, and Selena patiently awaited his signal from the bushes. Just then, a soldier burst from the forest, shouting that a monster had appeared, not Selena, but a gigantic armored bear. Bon couldn't believe such a creature was lurking so close to the forest's edge, but he commanded his men not to attack, as they would surely be killed if they did so. He ordered everyone to retreat, but one of the captain's sons stumbled and was about to be attacked by the bear. Dolan rushed in to save the captain's son, but without awakening the dragon's power within him, the boy was as good as lost. At that moment, Selena leaped in to protect the two, taking the blow for them. She wasn't killed but was severely injured in her back, using her cursed eyes to command the bear to retreat back into the woods. Bon and the others were left in utter astonishment, but when Selena checked on the boy's condition, Bon was unconcerned about her actions and demanded Dolan and the child step away from Selena so he could kill her. Dolan noticed the boy was frightened and advised him to get up and run back to his father. However, the boy refused to leave Selena until he was sure she would be treated kindly. Melida remarked that it seemed like Mia had intentionally saved them, but Bon remained adamant that she was a dangerous monster and refused to let her escape. Dolan still refused to abandon Selena, prompting Bon to ask her if she was the one who had left the offerings for the village. While attempting to confirm, Selena accidentally bit her own tongue, looking rather adorable in the process. But Bon had to maintain his serious demeanor and demanded to know why she had done it and why she decided to save two strangers. Selena officially introduced herself and bowed, requesting permission to live in the village. She explained that she had begun her journey following her family's tradition, but the solo adventure left her feeling lonelier than she had imagined, so she wished to live among others. As for why she saved the boy, she felt his family would be heartbroken if he were killed and wanted to prevent that from happening. The boy stepped away from Selena, allowing his father to strike. Dolan noticed the boy's fear and urged him to get up and run back to his father. But the boy refused to abandon Selena until he was certain she'd be treated kindly. Melida mentioned that Lamia seemed to have intentionally saved them, yet the boy's father insisted she was a dangerous monster who must not escape. Dolan stood firm, refusing to leave Selena's side. Barlan questioned Selena, asking if she was the one who left the village's offering. While trying to confirm if Selena accidentally bit her own tongue, which looked oddly cute, Barlan kept a serious tone, demanding to know why she did it and why she chose to save two strangers. Selena formally introduced herself and bowed, respectfully asking to live in the village. She explained her solitary journey was part of family tradition, but had left her feeling lonelier than expected, so she wished to live among others. Regarding why she saved the boy, Selena said she couldn't bear the thought of his family's heartbreak if he died, so she intervened. The villagers no longer feared Selena, but Barlan remained uncertain whether to trust her fully. He glanced toward Letitia to gauge her thoughts and, to his surprise, Letitia was receiving a divine prophecy from the goddess Mile. The goddess declared Selena was no evil monster and urged everyone to live in harmony with her. Letitia stepped forward to welcome Selena, warmly inviting her to stay in the village. Selena was overjoyed but soon collapsed from her injury and blood loss, requiring immediate medical care. After some time, Selena's wounds healed, and she was officially embraced as a member of the village. They even built her a cozy home. Excited, Selena explored inside and found a small mushroom-shaped pillow she instantly adored, thanking everyone for their kindness. The mushroom pillow was Barlan's idea, gentle apology for his earlier harshness, despite Selena having saved his son's life. Though they still had much to learn about Lamius, the villagers promised to do everything they could to make Selena feel comfortable. Now truly accepted, Dolan reached out his hand to welcome Selena as an official member of Reborn village. With Selena accepted as part of the village, Dolan felt hopeful that things would now flow smoothly. Yet he still owed a great debt to the goddess Mile for helping him that night. Dolan wanted a heartfelt conversation with Mile, so as he drifted to sleep, he projected his spirit and sought her out. Soon he entered Mile's kingdom, where she was overjoyed to see her old dragon friend after so long. They finally had a chance to talk properly. Dolan expressed his gratitude for her telling Letitia that Selena was a good soul. Without that, he couldn't imagine what might have happened. Above all, Dolan was amazed that Mile could recognize him in human form and offer help. She simply sensed a kindred spirit and immediately knew it was him, though she was still stunned that his current life brought him happiness, something he once despised during his days as a mighty dragon. Dolan admitted he hadn't even tried to beg for mercy when he was a dragon, but after reincarnating as a human, he realized the joy of truly living each day. Mile sensed that joy in Dolan's heart and rejoiced for him, wishing him all the best in his new life. The next morning, Selena burst into Dolan's room. Though he didn't want to wake, her cheerful face made him open his eyes, and his own smile mirrored hers. There were many things, but he wished she could gently tap his head, instead of charging in like a tank at the Independence Palace gate. Selena apologized, and Dan held no grudge. Then he wondered why she arrived so early. Selena was surprised and reminded him he had forgotten his promise to accompany Christina to plant potatoes today, while Christina was still waiting outside. Meanwhile, at the academy in the capital, the principal received a special letter from Christina. Since Christina was the academy's pride, the principal opened and decided to read the letter aloud immediately. The letter described everything Christina had learned since arriving in Varan. Nature had not favored this place. It was a remote village facing countless challenges. Therefore, all villagers had to train in combat to survive. Not long ago, Christina had a 1-minute solo showdown with the vice captain of the defense unit in a simulated battle, and the entire village was in awe of her skills. It was rare for anyone to give the vice captain a run for their money. They believed she had yet to take things seriously, but at this rate she could easily sweep the game. The vice captain found the compliments grating, but Christina confidently claimed it was true. She hadn't even unleashed her full power yet. Melida admitted she hadn't shown all her skills either, but if Christina came, she was excited to welcome her. Melida then drew her second sword and attacked with renewed vigor. However, just seconds later, Melida found herself disarmed and knocked out cold on the ground, a humiliating defeat for her. Being a fair player, as soon as she stood up, her first words were to praise Christina's swordsmanship. Dolan then came over to congratulate Christina on her victory and invited her to celebrate at dinner. At the restaurant, she was treated warmly and attentively by the girls, making her feel deeply touched by the overwhelming hospitality of the locals. However, while she was eating, she noticed everyone staring at her. The girls scrambled to apologize, explaining they just found her incredibly beautiful. Dolan found this amusing and asked Christina if she wanted to join him for a night out. Christina was taken aback by the sudden invitation, and before she could respond, Dan advised her to decline, warning that Dolan wouldn't stop drinking until he was completely wasted. Christina was determined to give it her all, but he reminded her to plant the potatoes evenly so they could grow better. As Christina dug into the ground to create holes and place the potatoes, guards rushed in to announce an urgent situation. After a while, she returned to her room, but upon seeing Balin and his friends gearing up for a wild night of drinking, she felt a pang of loneliness. So, she decided to step outside and practice to clear her mind. It was then that Dolan and Selena stumbled upon her. Selena's face lit up upon seeing Christina, and she inquired why she was training at this hour. Noticing Christina's silence, she guessed something was troubling her. To lift Christina's spirits, Selena invited her over to her house, and Christina agreed. Selena led Christina to her home, excited to show off her bed, claiming it was incredibly comfortable. She urged Christina to try it out, confident that she would love it. However, Dolan reminded Selena that the bed was designed for Lamia and might not be suitable for humans. Selena apologized, realizing her oversight, but despite her concerns, Christina was eager to give it a shot. To her surprise, it was indeed quite comfortable. Hearing this, Selena beamed with joy, explaining that Balin had come up with the idea of making the bed as a welcoming gift. Initially, she had been anxious about moving there, unsure if the villagers would accept her. Yet, the kindness of everyone had warmed her heart, and the more she learned about them, the more attached she felt to this place. The next day, Balin announced another drinking contest, declaring that no one could consume more milk than he could. Christina expressed her desire to join, and she was handed a cup of milk. In one swift gulp, Christina drained the glass, even leaving some milk on her lips. Balin was amazed by her remarkable drinking speed and inquired if she enjoyed milk as much as he did. Christina confessed that she could drink more milk than the average person prompting Balin to challenge her to a milk drinking contest, which she gladly accepted. However, she declined responsibility if she happened to deplete the village's milk supply. The first glasses were poured, and both Christina and Balin effortlessly consumed their milk. Yet, as more glasses continued to be served, Balin began to fall behind. He struggled to keep up in his quest to maintain his title as the Milk King, but alas, his human limits caught up with him, and he drunkenly collapsed onto the table. Christina was officially crowned the new Milk Queen when Principal Olivia read a letter, satisfied to learn that Christina was enjoying her time there. But before long, she had another visitor. Shortly after, the noble class of Galois hosted an extravagant party, where the most talked-about topic was Christina, the pride of the Academy, befriending a Lamia. Opinions were sharply divided. Some found it intriguing, while others were appalled. Olivia was taken aback at how swiftly the news spread, even prompting central officials to seek her out for more information about the Lamia that Christina had befriended. Olivia was baffled as to why the central authority would concern themselves with a Lamia. Nevertheless, she believed Lamia to be a dangerous creature to coexist with humans. Furthermore, there had been many recent kidnapping incidents. Who knew if this Lamia was connected to those events? Olivia acknowledged the severity of the kidnappings, but insisted that this Lamia was not involved, as Christina had described her as kind-hearted and gentle, posing no threat as long as she was allowed to remain. However, the central officials were determined to pry into the matter, questioning who governed the village of Varan. The appointed official announced that they would send a delegate to assess whether Selena posed any danger. Transitioning scenes, Selena was helping Dolan plant potatoes, and once they finished, she excitedly called Dolan over to showcase their hard work. He could see her efforts, but reminded her to space the potatoes evenly for optimal growth. Meanwhile, Christina was digging holes in the ground to plant her potatoes when guards rushed in with urgent news. Both Dolan and Selena were summoned to the village gate, and the three of them halted their work and rushed over to see what was happening. Upon arrival, Christina was pulled aside, while Dolan and Selena were surrounded. Gouda introduced himself as a commissioner from the northern border, arriving in response to information that someone had brought a Lamia into this region. Dolan did not deny it, but Parames reminded everyone of the blessing bestowed by the goddess Mali, allowing Selena to live here. Gouda reassured the crowd that he believed in the goddess's words, but emphasized that his duty was to ensure the safety of this land, thus he needed to investigate personally. Dolan felt relieved to know that Gouda wasn't here to turn Selena into a fried snake. Nevertheless, he remained wary of their underlying motives. Gouda explained that he simply wished to take Selena back with him to the central office to determine if she truly posed a threat. Selena had no authority to refuse, but Dolan didn't want her to go alone, so he requested to accompany her, justifying that he was the one who brought her there. Gouda found this reasonable and agreed. She tried her best, but he reminded her to plant the potatoes evenly so they could grow better. Christina knelt down, punched the soil to make holes, and planted the seed potatoes. At that moment, a guard rushed over with urgent news there was trouble. Both Dolan and Selena were called to the village gate. The three stopped what they were doing and ran to see what was happening. Upon arrival, Christina was pulled aside. Dolan and Selena were surrounded. Gouda introduced himself as an officer from the northern border, coming because he had information that someone brought Lamia into this land. Dolan didn't deny it, but Parames reminded that the goddess Mali had blessed Selena to live here. Gouda reassured everyone he didn't doubt Mali's words, but his mission was to ensure the land's safety, so he had to investigate personally. Dolan felt relieved knowing Gouda wasn't here to turn Selena into fried serpent. Still, he couldn't grasp Gouda's true motives. Gouda explained he only wanted Selena to accompany him back to headquarters for officials to assess if she was truly safe. Selena had no right to refuse, but Dolan insisted on accompanying her, since he was the one who brought her here. Gouda agreed it made sense. That evening, Dolan and Selena set off to meet the central leadership. As they left, Christina thought she should talk to Principal Olivia to find ways to ensure Selena's safety. Using wind magic, she sped back to the academy like a kid raised on Naruto episodes. Meanwhile, Dolan and Selena sat in the back of a carriage en route to the central leaders. Dolan worried for Selena her first long journey like this. But Selena felt fine. She was only afraid Dolan might get cold, so she offered to share her blanket with him. Dolan appreciated her care deeply, though he tried to hide it. At that moment, Christina had just returned to the academy and burst into Olivia's office, demanding to discuss Gouda's sudden visit to Varan village. Olivia was more than willing to discuss the matter, but first insisted that Christina sit down for a cup of tea and a bite to eat, before diving into the details. Once Christina had calmed, Olivia explained that Selena would never face execution, as she had received the blessing of the goddess Mali, meaning no one would dare harm her. In fact, Gouda had no desire to bully Selena, as he didn't consider the situation serious. However, Ken, a powerful woman within the Central Bureau, had forced Gouda's hand, believing Selena could become a threat. Ken even mentioned the recent kidnappings in the city, which sounded absurd considering Selena lived far away in Varan. Yet, if Selena were to come to the capital for any reason, Ken might frame her for those crimes. Meanwhile, at Ken's estate, Dolan and Selena finally arrived, greeted warmly by her with a smile that concealed the tension of a woman who had endured countless trials. However, Ken, a powerful woman in the central government, forced him to act this way. She believed Selena could become a threat. Ken even hinted Selena might be involved in recent kidnappings in the city. It sounded absurd, since Selena lived far away in Varan village. But if Selena came to the capital for some reason, Ken could pin the blame on her. Meanwhile, at Ken's mansion, Dolan and Selena finally met her. Ken greeted them with a natural smile, though she had stretched it thin many times before. She invited them inside for a lavish dinner and encouraged them to eat freely. Dolan and Selena were touched by her hospitality. Throughout the meal, she showered them with flattering words. As the sinister aura around Selena's beauty became clearer, Dolan felt a sudden dizziness wash over him. It was the moment Kyan unveiled her true, dark intentions. Yet, before Selena and Dolan could fully grasp what was happening, they both lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Christina and Olivia were rushing to their aid. Kyan was ready to strip Selena's flawless skin, aiming to preserve that beauty eternally. But before Kyan could make a move, Dolan snapped awake. This must be the antidote, he thought. Could it be that the ingredients bought from Dongshuan Market had unexpected effects? Sharp and handsome, Dolan calmly tore off the binding ropes. He noticed the blood-infused magic circles etched on the floor, proof that Kyan had been toiling in darkness for a long, cruel time. How many lives had she destroyed? Yet Kyan seemed indifferent, still lost in her madness. Why aren't you feeling the effects? Kyan sneered. Dolan shrugged. I've been exposed before. Maybe I built immunity. Kyan snarled, accusing Dolan of not being human. Dodging the insult, Dolan flipped the question back. Have you ever tried eating rice while counting grains? Disgusted by Kyan's fake act, Dolan demanded to know why she had hurt so many people. Kyan claimed her reasons were justified. Like any girl, she desired beauty. But unlike others, she decided to steal every beautiful trait she found and graft them onto herself. This magic was forbidden. She made a pact with demons to gain it. Yet, for the sake of beauty, every sacrifice was worth it. Her arm was from a savage orc, her legs from a beastman, and her flawless skin from an elf. For a time, she was satisfied until she saw Selena's radiant form and decided it was time for an upgrade. Dolan thought Kyan's mind was twisted, but her logic held a dark truth. Kyan showed no regret and never contemplated atonement. Selena overheard everything, horror creeping over her as she realized Kyan had scammed many innocent girls. They might see a candy-coated shell, but inside were only needles and traps. Selena confronted Kyen with heartfelt reasoning, but to Kyen, only perfect beauty mattered. Selena declared Guda had been right about Kyan's true nature. Kyan was shocked. She thought she had hidden her secrets well, but she had underestimated Guda. Before Dolan and Selena arrived, Guda had warned them about Kyan's evil deeds. If they could prove it, Kyan would be exposed and defeated. So Dolan and Selena forced Kyan to confess, gathering undeniable evidence. At the climax, Guda and others made a dramatic entrance, breaking down walls and charging in with style. Just in time, Guda, Olivia, Christina, and guards rushed forward, and Guda ordered Kyan's immediate arrest. Kyen had planned to frame Selena for the disappearance of the girls she exploited in her vile experiments. The truth was finally exposed, and Guda, along with a few others, made a grand entrance, breaking through the walls like a scene from an epic saga. At that moment, Guda, Olivia, Christina, and some guards charged in, and Guda ordered his men to apprehend Kyan immediately. Kyan had concocted a plan to frame Selena for the disappearance of the girls she had exploited in her beauty experiments, using it as an excuse to kill Selena and thus free herself to use Selena's body. Christina couldn't believe Kyan would be so reckless, driven by her desire to be more beautiful. But Kyan believed that those who had never known ugliness could never understand the high price one must pay for beauty. Since childhood, Kyan had been drawn to pretty things, nurturing a deep-rooted pain within her. Growing up as beautiful as them, she faced a harsh reality when she gazed at her own reflection in the mirror, shattering the dreams of the little girl she once was. Her appearance was so offensive that even artists refused to capture her features. Realizing this, she became determined to take the face of the first beautiful woman she saw. Piece by piece, Kyan began to rip apart the bodies of all the beautiful women in the area. Her unspeakable cruelty caught the attention of demons, who promised to aid her in continuing her twisted experiments, obsessively enhancing her beauty, convinced that one day she would become the most beautiful woman in the world. She would not allow anything to stand in her way. Eventually, her true self emerged, and they quickly brought Selena to safety. However, facing that hideous creature made the soldiers tremble with fear. Selena had to use her cursed eyes to restrain Kyan, holding her in place for a moment. But ultimately, Kyan broke free from the binding magic, launching an attack on Selena. This time, Christina snuck in and severed a few of Kyan's fingers there. Are few things Christina believes are unforgivable, and hurting her friends is one of them. Determined, she charged into close combat with Kyan. However, before Christina could deliver a fatal blow, Kyan defended herself fiercely and used dark magic to fend her off. Olivia found herself at a loss, unable to summon spirits while underground. Dolan reassured everyone he could handle this while they held Kyan at bay. He sketched a few magic circles beneath the ground, preparing to finish Kyan off. Before he began, Dolan wanted to know if Kyan truly found happiness after taking so many lives for the sake of beauty. But Kyan didn't think mere beauty was enough for happiness. She questioned whether it truly mattered at all. However, her soul had long been tainted by insatiable desires. She would never touch true beauty. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Dolan activated the celestial javelin spell, surrounding Kyan and trapping her within the magic circle, crushing her to dust like powdered rice. Days passed, and Dolan and Selena remained at the estate while Gouda dealt with the aftermath of Kyan's actions. Dolan spent his time helping Selena learn the human language. She struggled with it, but to integrate into human life, she had to become fluent. At that moment, Christina visited and inquired about Selena's progress. Selena admitted her head hurt, but she could read at a decent level. Christina praised her progress. Shortly after, Gouda and Olivia came to see them. Gouda apologized for not coming sooner due to being occupied with Kyan's case. He also expressed regret for involving Dolan and Selena in the plan, but Selena simply replied that there was no need to apologize since the outcome was good. Moreover, Gouda handed Selena 2 papers, a residence permit for Galoa and an official registration, ensuring there would be no more issues regarding her residency. This made Selena feel incredibly excited. If Gouda had the authority to decide from the start, he would have allowed her to stay without any complications because he saw her as a gentle and kind Lamia. Selena was now an official citizen of Galoa. Olivia told Dolan that someone wanted to meet him. The whole group headed to the academy to meet Renzo, an old friend of Dolan and the son of Maguru. Selena introduced herself to him, but Renzo had already heard about her from his mother and Olivia. Renzo invited them to tour the city, and both Dolan and Selena eagerly agreed. Renzo took them to the central street, the most populated area. Selena was amazed by the city's beautiful scenery. When a boy dropped some fruit, she reached out to return it, but his mother panicked and pulled him back. Despite having all the necessary documentation, people still harbored biases against Lamia, and Selena was painfully aware that prejudice wouldn't be easily swayed overnight. She suggested that Dolan buy gifts for everyone at home before they returned to Varan. After shopping, they said goodbye to Renzo. Before leaving, Renzo and Olivia invited Dolan to join the academy. Olivia recognized that Dolan's magical potential would be wasted, if not fully harnessed, and the academy would be the right place for his development. She also realized that his soul belonged to the ancient golden dragon, and if he wanted to protect his beloved village, expanding his knowledge would be the surest path to success. On the way back, Christina asked Dolan if he intended to accept the offer. He admitted that the invitation sounded tempting, but he truly felt reluctant to leave Varan. Christina insisted that while Varan was a wonderful place, it wouldn't take his mind anywhere far. This made Dolan begin to reconsider joining the academy. Meanwhile, as Dolan and the others were on their way back to Varan, disaster struck in the forest. The portal to the underworld had opened, releasing hundreds of monsters under the control of 4 mysterious figures. Selena introduced herself to him, but Renzo had already heard about her from his mother and Olivia. Renzo invited them to tour the city, and both Dolan and Selena eagerly agreed. Renzo took them to the bustling center of town, where they marveled at the beautiful sights. When a boy dropped his fruit, Selena reached out to return it, but his mother rushed in, pulling him away. Despite having all the necessary paperwork, people still harbored biases against Lamius, and Selena was acutely aware that such prejudices wouldn't change overnight. Everyone stepped back in shock despite having all the test results. Prejudice against Lamia and Selena wouldn't fade overnight. Selena suggested Dolan buy gifts for everyone at home before returning to Varan. After shopping, they bade farewell to Renzo. Renzo and Olivia invited Dolan to join the academy. Olivia saw Dolan's magical potential was vast and would be wasted without cultivation. She recognized his soul as that of an ancient dragon and believed knowledge was the surest path to protect his beloved village. Christina asked if Dolan would accept the academy's invitation. Dolan admitted it sounded tempting, but he couldn't bear leaving Varan. Christina argued that while Varan was wonderful, it wouldn't expand his horizons. Her words made Dolan start to consider joining the academy. Meanwhile, as Dolan and company headed back to Varan, disaster struck the forest. The gate to the underworld burst open, unleashing hundreds of demon ants controlled by 4 mysterious figures. The first victim was an elf scout who stumbled upon the scene by chance, only to be ambushed and helplessly killed. His comrades rushed to investigate but were swiftly slaughtered, as Wellone even falling victim to his own bravery, standing defiantly before the monsters. More elf scouts arrived, only to find their troops massacred. Their leader discovered one scout barely alive but fading fast. Without immediate aid, he would perish. The leader demanded to know what happened, and the dying elf managed to report a monstrous horde before slipping into unconsciousness. Back in Varan village, Christina and Dolan were teaching the children swordsmanship, while Selena watched Dolan train happily. Yet, a shadow of sadness lingered as Selena wondered if one day Dolan would leave to join the academy. Lost in thought, she failed to notice the kids teasing her by tugging her tail, prompting her playful chase. Amid the chaos, Dolan smiled, seeing Selena blend so warmly with the children, and hoping peace would last. Suddenly, Christina approached Dolan with a request. She wanted to venture into the forest, where many fierce creatures dwelled, to test her strength. Dolan assured her he knew the way, but warned it wasn't a place for the faint-hearted. As the children squeal and run amok with excitement, Dolan watches with delight, hoping that this peaceful scene will never change. However, Christina approaches him, her eyes alight with determination, stating that she has a request. She wishes to venture into the forest, intrigued by the rumors of fierce beasts lurking within. Dolan warns her that while he knows the path, it's not a place one should wander carelessly. But Christina stands firm, revealing her own reasons. Anne, the village boy, had complained of a shortage of food for his pigs, and believed she could gather plenty of corn if the monsters were dealt with. For her, the fight is merely a side quest. Unable to counter her reasoning, Dolan reluctantly agrees to lead Christina into the woods, accompanied by Anne, Selena, and a few soldiers for safety. As they enter the dense forest, Selena curiously questions why the soldiers are clad in so much armor for just a brief expedition. Dolan explains that they must be cautious, as powerful monsters have recently appeared in the area. A true knight must always be prepared. Nevertheless, with Dolan, Selena, and Christina present, he believes they are unlikely to encounter anything too dangerous. Once inside the forest, Anne begins foraging for food, allowing Dolan to scout the area with the soldiers. As they delve deeper into the woods, Dolan warns the soldiers to stay vigilant, for one can never predict what may lurk in the shadows. Suddenly, a wild boar bursts from the underbrush, and one soldier rashly chases after it without a second thought. However, he swiftly regrets his decision when he finds himself face to face with a massive tiger, its sharp teeth gleaming, ready to feast. Just as the tiger lunges for the soldier, Dolan intervenes, wielding his hammer with fierce resolve and defeating the beast. After neutralizing the threat, Dolan scolds the soldier for straying from the group without being aware of his surroundings. Ironically, Dolan himself is caught off guard as another monster suddenly attacks him. Hearing Dolan's cries for help, Christina, Selena, and the soldiers rush to his side, only to find him on the ground, a fearsome creature looming over him. The monster attempts to strike, but Dolan retaliates with a thunderous blast, sending it reeling. Christina, puzzled, asks what kind of monster it is, as she's never seen anything like it before. Dolan informs her that it's a low-level phantom beast, but still it possesses considerable strength and speed, requiring them to be cautious. Dolan instructs Christina to prepare for a finishing blow, while he keeps the creature engaged. He takes the first step, launching another thunderous attack at the phantom beast. In its moment of disorientation, Christina charges forward, slicing it in half. Even with the creature defeated, she remains baffled about how such a being could exist here. Dolan urges her to keep this discovery a secret, until they learn more about what has transpired. As the day comes to a close, the group returns to the village. Concern fills the air as the villagers eagerly await news of Dolan and the soldiers' well-being, led by the village chief. They were wounded quite seriously, but thankfully, their lives were not in immediate danger. With time, Christina and Dolan shared the tale of how Balon and others were attacked by a tiger and a mysterious creature. Though they didn't delve deeply into the details of this second monster, the village chief couldn't shake the ominous feeling. After all, Balon was the strongest soldier of Veron, so if he was so easily defeated, who could possibly stand against it? Moments later, Maguru arrived at the hall, announcing that Balon had regained consciousness and would fully recover, but his injuries from the mysterious creature were severe. Clearly, something sinister lurked in the forest, prompting Dolan to stand up and declare he would investigate. However, Maguru stopped him, urging him not to go anywhere after what had happened to Balon. She feared Dolan could face the same fate. In light of this, she suggested they treat the forest as forbidden territory, hoping the creature would stay away from the village. Dolan understood her caution, but insisted that if they did nothing now, they would forever live in fear. Maguru relented, agreeing to let Dolan investigate the forest on the condition that he would not go alone, as venturing out by himself would be too reckless. Christina volunteered to accompany Dolan, but the village chief was completely against it. He worried about how he would explain to the academy if something happened to Christina while she was under his care. Understanding the chief's concerns, Christina still felt the need for company, leading Selena to suggest she could take her place, as she possessed cursed eyes and could wield magic. Believing she could be of help to Dolan, he agreed to have Selena join him. However, before they could finalize their plans, the chief imposed one more condition for the mission. Both must prioritize their lives above all else, with retreat being the wisest strategy. Dolan and Selena agreed to his terms. The following morning, the two set off into the forest to investigate. It had been a long time since Dolan and Selena had the chance to spend time alone together, and Selena began to feel flustered. Yet, she was determined to prove her worth to Dolan, refusing to let herself get distracted. As they approached the forest, Dolan sensed someone nearby and stopped, only to find it was Christina. Not permitted to join this expedition, she had decided to stroll through the forest, claiming she wanted to listen closely to the sounds. Dolan questioned why she was there after agreeing to stay away as the chief advised. Christina admitted that although she had promised, her concern for the village of Reborn was too great. If anything threatened her beloved home, she wanted to be there to help protect those she cared for. Selena saw no issue with Christina joining them, as she was a formidable warrior. Selena could understand Christina's desire to contribute to the village, especially since she had been there herself, so she could join their group. Given the circumstances, Dolan felt he had no choice but to agree with Selena. Christina thanked both for understanding her, and the three set off to confront the monsters lurking deep in the forest. After dealing with the undead, Christina encountered another terrifying creature. Just as she prepared to strike it down, Selena intervened, revealing that this one was, in fact, quite gentle. Selena offered it some food, and Dolan seemed to be quite friendly with the creature's offspring. Since these monsters posed no threat, Selena decided to lay out a picnic for the group. Christina was amazed at Selena's calmness, even with a towering beast sitting beside them. Selena pointed out that she herself was a monster, so she had nothing to fear. Encouraging Christina to try feeding the little monsters, Selena wanted her to see that they were completely harmless. Christina presented a red apple, which the creature happily munched on. Now, Christina realized that even creatures like this could be quite adorable. Selena explained that they were simply out for food, indicating something must have driven them away from their usual foraging grounds. If the situation was serious enough to affect even the powerful monsters, it was all the more reason for them to investigate the root of the problem. Christina took a bite of the sandwich Dolan had made for her and was pleasantly surprised by how delicious it was. Dolan explained that his mother had baked the bread, and he had prepared the meat using his father's recipe. Selena commented that Christina looked lovely even while eating, and Dolan admitted he found her uniquely charming, no matter what she was doing. Christina felt a rush of embarrassment upon hearing this. After realizing Dolan found her attractive, Selena asked Christina how she could become as enchanting as she was, thinking that might help her find a suitor. Christina didn't know how to respond, as she had no special secrets to share. Dolan reassured Selena that even if Christina had a special secret, she wouldn't need it, as she was already beautiful, just the way she was. After he said this, Selena's heart raced, believing it meant Dolan found her appealing too, and if he did, it might mean he wanted her to be his wife. Truly, a lesson in logic. However, just as Selena was basking in joy, they suddenly heard a rustling from the bushes, and all became alert. To their surprise, it was just a tiny fairy. The fairy warned them to flee, as danger was imminent, and shortly after, a horde of undead appeared. Christina and Dolan sprang into action, ready to dispatch them one by one. This time, however, there were far more of them than before, necessitating a division of labor to tackle them in waves. While Christina faced several monsters head-on, Dolan provided support from behind. Suddenly, one of the undead tried to ambush them. Just as he prepared to confront one, two more charged at him, working in unison. Selena's heart pounded wildly zurely. This meant Dolan found her captivating. If he was drawn to her, did that mean he wanted her as his wife? Such was the logic of a professor, she mused. But just as her joy blossomed, a rustle from the bushes snapped everyone to alert. To their surprise, a tiny fairy appeared, warning them of imminent danger. Moments later, a horde of undead soldiers emerged. Christina and Dolan sprang into action, battling wave after wave. This time, the enemy was far greater in number, forcing them to split up and tackle the threat in groups. Christina faced demons ahead, while Dolan covered the rear. Suddenly, a spectral warrior tried to ambush them. Just as Dolan prepared to fight one, two attacked simultaneously. After defeating the first, his sword got stuck in its skull, delaying his strike on the second. Still, he held on to hope. He never wanted to lose his humanity, even in battle. Though he preferred to stay in his human form, he was forced to unleash a fragment of his dragon power, shattering his foes beneath an unstoppable force. Once the demon soldiers were vanquished, he returned to his normal form, declaring that battles like these would become easier if he embraced his dragon strength. While he wrestled with the demon horde, Christina nearly fell under their overwhelming might, but at the last moment, Selena unleashed her magic to obliterate the final demon soldier. As calm returned, they checked on the fairy to see if she had been hurt. The fairy introduced herself as Mio, expressing deep gratitude to the group for rescuing her from the demon soldiers. She explained that these creatures had suddenly begun chasing her, and if they kept terrorizing the forest like this, it was no wonder the local creatures were driven from their usual hunting grounds. However, Mio warned that these were mere scouts, meaning a final boss would soon appear, and when that happened, disaster would befall them all. Christina asked Mio if she could share any useful intelligence about the demon soldiers, as they truly wanted to help her. Mio cherished the offer, but explained she was forbidden from speaking to outsiders. Just then, Dolan sensed a group approaching them. Unlike the demons, Christina had no idea who these newcomers were, but instinctively reached for her sword, preparing for battle. Yet before she could act, Dolan stopped her, noting that the strangers showed no hostile signs and he didn't want to provoke them. He lowered his weapon, and Christina followed his lead as the elves drew near. Confident that Dolan and his companions were not a threat, they began to lower their guard. Yet, still wary of humans, they ordered Mio to stay away from Dolan's group and return to her kin. Mio stepped forward to the captain of the elite squad, Du, and tried to convince him to calm down, explaining that Dolan and his friends had just saved her from a monster. However, Du seemed to have known this already, based on their surroundings. Selena realized that they had likely wandered into the elves' territory, which was why the elves had reacted so defensively. But Dolan believed everything would be fine, as they had not come to the forest with hostile intentions. Still, to be safe, he instructed his two friends to stand behind him in case tensions rose. As they approached, Dolan was the first to speak, thanking Du for saving Mio. However, he needed to understand why two humans were present in the elven forest. Dolan calmly explained that he hailed from Varan village, which had been attacked by a strange type of monster. He suspected that the problem might stem from this forest, prompting him and his friends to investigate. Although he had a valid reason for being there, Dolan also apologized for trespassing on their land without permission. Du said he wouldn't blame them for wanting to investigate, but he urged them to leave the forest immediately, as it was too dangerous to linger. Dolan asked if he was hinting at the demon army wreaking havoc, and from the expression on Du's face, it seemed Dolan had guessed correctly. He inferred that Du's village had also been attacked by the demon horde, but the level of devastation there was far worse, as the elves were facing an entire army. Now aware that Dolan and his friends were not a threat, Du needed to return to his village to help fight against the demons. The attack was similar to what had happened to Doran's village, but the intensity of the demon invasion here was far worse, as the elves faced an entire army. Now that they knew Doran and the others were not a threat, they had to return to the village to help fight against the demons. But before they left, Christina shouted, asking how he planned to deal with the demon army alone. If what he said was true, it meant her village was at risk of being wiped out. She implored him to allow them to help. While Christina's heart was in the right place, she was a bit too eager in her suggestion, gripping Doran's collar, which caused the elves to draw their weapons at her. However, once Doran calmed her down, the elves realized that Christina was only worried for their safety. Additionally, having witnessed her swordsmanship during the earlier fight against the demons, they believed having her on their side would be beneficial. Doran felt relieved to have successfully negotiated with the elves, but his words led him to suspect that the gate through which the demons had entered must be somewhere in this forest. If that gate remained open, more demons would flood into the forest before he could act. Doran wanted to destroy the gate, knowing it could reveal his dragon heritage. But even if it meant being expelled from the village, he still had a duty to protect those he cared about, so he wouldn't hesitate to use his dragon powers if necessary. He approached Doran and suggested they work together to resolve the issue. He knew elves typically did not work with humans, but given the special circumstances, he hoped Doran could bend the rules a bit. Initially, Doran hesitated, as the rules prohibited humans from entering the elven village. But then his sister Theo stepped forward, stating that the safety of the village was more important than adhering to the rules. Furthermore, Doran and his friends appeared trustworthy, so she encouraged him to have a little faith in them. As the two groups united, a thunderous roar echoed through the forest, darkening the sky with an ominous energy. Dolan recognized this sensation from the past. Only one thing could unleash such chaos. The portal had fully opened, allowing powerful demons to spill into their world, and Dolan knew this spelled disaster. He cast a wind acceleration spell upon everyone, urging them to flee to the elf village before it was too late. Meanwhile, the newly emerged demons reveled in the tainted air and the thrill of destruction. They had been sent by their Dark Lord to pave the way for his arrival. Gelon reminded the others that their master expected them to complete their mission flawlessly, which meant taking this task seriously. Noticing one of their own missing, he inquired about Jorge's whereabouts. The others replied that he hadn't crossed through the portal, likely due to the massive mana required for his transport. With Jorge's absence acknowledged, the remaining demons decided to entertain themselves by hunting down nearby elves. Two of them proposed a game to see who could find and eliminate an elf first. Gelon, unimpressed, insisted he had no time to waste on such trivialities, yet he wouldn't stop the others from their antics. Back in the elf village, the situation was dire as they faced an onslaught of demon scouts. Despite their best efforts to hold the line, it was merely a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. The gate likely required an immense amount of mana for the demons to transport themselves through. Until Jog appeared, the other demons decided to entertain themselves. They could sense the elves nearby, so two of them decided to play a game to see who could find and kill an elf first. Gelon stated he had no time to waste on a bunch of mundane elves, but wouldn't stop the others from playing. Meanwhile, the elven village was under attack by the scouting demon troops. Even though they tried their best to hold the line, it was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed by the sheer number of demons. The situation grew increasingly dire for them from this moment, as Gus soon arrived on the battlefield, declaring that his assault would mark the beginning of the war against the inhabitants of the surface. He charged into the elven village wall, and the elves did their utmost to stop him, but their efforts were limited to shooting arrows, which seemed to have little effect on him. Before long, Jealous completely obliterated the wall of the elven village, and this news reached Doran through the forest spirits. From what he heard, Doran realized the situation in the village was worse than he imagined, so he and the others needed to hurry to reinforce the village's defenses. Understanding the urgency, he and his companions rushed to reinforce the village's defenses. But on their way, they encountered a squad of demon scouts. They had to eliminate these foes before reaching the village. Meanwhile, in the elf village, Gus leisurely tormented his victims, a cruel smile twisting his face. As he raised his spear to toy with an elf, thick vines suddenly wrapped around him tightly. Black roses bloomed from the vines, and although Gus struggled to break free, the tendrils drained his mana and blood relentlessly. Weakened beyond combat, he fell powerless. Behind this intervention stood Diodora the forest spirit. Thanks to her, the village could hold out a little longer. Meanwhile, Dolan and his friends fought fiercely to break through the demon scouts. As the elves rained arrows down, Dolan conjured a storm of energy arrows, pelting the demons. Simultaneously, Christina sliced through the remaining fiends with her sword, while Selena used her cursed eyes to hold them in place. While they struggled to hold the line, Tio slipped through a secret path into the elf village. Once all the elves had passed, he called to Dolan and the others, urging them to enter quickly. Before departing, Dolan suggested creating a barrier to stall the scouting demon army. Drawing 2 magical stones he'd received from the earth spirit when first meeting Selena, he instructed the group to channel their strongest spells through them. These stones were immensely powerful. Thanks to the stones, both Selena and Christina could unleash high-level magic. Not wanting others to steal their thunder, Dolan decided to follow his mother's example, using his stone to cast a massive explosion that wiped out the last demons. After their victory, they finally caught up with Du, who was deeply impressed by their power and began to truly trust them to save the villagers in the elf village. Diodora still holds Gellis firmly restrained, beginning to chastise him for his monstrous crimes. Gellis scoffs, mocking her while murder may be a sin in her eyes. To him, the greater crime is weakness. Every weak soul that fell beneath his hands deserved their fate. The irony sharpens as the vines draining his life tighten. Diodora coldly reminds him of his own code. He is the weak one, deserving death. She prepares to send him off early, but just then, Rafer arrives, wilting Diodora's vines with a mere touch. Freed, Jealous snarls he doesn't need Rafer's help. Yet Rafa seems indifferent after all. Gellis has been entertaining Diodora, and now Rafa wants some fun for himself. Sensing the deadly battle ahead, Diodora strains to call upon nature's power, but silence greets her plea. Unknown to her, Rafer has destroyed every flower, every leaf along the way. Diodora's fury ignites at Rafer's ruthless act. She vows he will pay dearly. She unleashes a barrage of vines at Rafer and Jealous, but Rafer remains unfazed, amused even, unable to grasp why she's so angry. Rafer claims that flowers competing for nutrients is nature's law, and she, a flower spirit, is no ordinary blossom. She hails from the demon realm, thriving on the blood and life force of anyone daring to come near. No matter how many vines Diodora launches, Rafer can drain their life effortlessly. Yet Diodora refuses to yield, sending a fresh wave of vines. Again, Rafer withers them without effort, but hidden within Diodora's first attack was a secret second vine Rafer fails to notice and is struck. Though just a scratch, it shatters her carefree demeanor. The perfect image she guards cannot tolerate being marred by a lowly nature spirit like Diodora. Now burning with resolve, Rafer steels herself for revenge. Diodora stands fearless, vowing to kill Rafer, but she forgets Gellis lurking nearby, who's waited long enough. Jealous declares he will end Diodora himself. Rafer tries to stop him, wanting to deal with Diodora personally, but Jealous ignores her and charges forward. Diodora summons a protective wall of vines, but now Gellis knows their power. He dodges easily and slices through the barrier. Forced to retreat, Diodora is left vulnerable. Seizing the moment, Rafa sneaks in and strikes her abdomen. Rafa's attacks are especially deadly, each blow sapping both life and mana. Diodora admits if they continue combined assault, survival is impossible. She starts apologizing to all those who died by these demons' hands. She won't be able to avenge them. But at the last moment, a colossal energy beam crashes from the sky, targeting Gelis and Rafa. Both are forced aside as the dust settles, revealing none other than Dolan. His face tense, a warning to foes. Tread carefully, this battle is far from over. If you felt the weight of Diodora's struggle, the clash of spirits and demons, remember. Sometimes, even in despair, a spark from above can shift fate's tide. If you enjoyed this chapter, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to join the journey ahead and support the story.